welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your literary hype woman, and it's time to lace up those corsets and tie up those cravats because we are discussing historical romance today alongside an author who's got her fair share of books out in the historical romance space. I'm talking about Christina Britton. This is not the book we are talking about. This is the first book in the series, Some Dukes Have All the Luck. The new book in the series is What's a Duke Got to Do with It, and it has some scandal in it, y'all. Multiple scandals for one poor woman. She's dealt with a lot. So without any further ado, let's discuss Some Dukes Have All the Luck with Christina Britton. Welcome to Literary Hype. It is so exciting to have you on the show to talk about your new book, What's a Duke Got to Do with It? So for those who don't know anything about this book or what you do, you want to introduce us a little bit to What's a Duke Got to Do with It?
Yeah, hi. What's a Duke Got to Do with It is the second in the Sinful Spinster series, which is a spinoff of my Isle of Sin series. They all take place on the fictitious Isle of Sin, which is like English seaside resort type thing that I kind of made up in my head. And yeah, it's about Miss Katrina Denby, who has had some misfortunes befall her. She had a major scandal in her past and wound up being ruined because of it. And now she's on the Isle of Sin working as a companion. She used to be a debutante, now she's a companion. And winds up that the scandal kind of comes back in a worse way to her bedroom window, quite literally. The guy who snuck into her bedroom the first time tried it again and fell to his death. So that's literally how the book starts out. And winds up that her sweetheart from before, that nothing ever happened between them, but they were kind of starting to connect. He winds up coming to the Isle of Sin as to try to save the dukedom, because the dukedom is in major peril. And they see each other and sparks fly again. And yeah, they kind of have to deal with that and the two things that are still affecting them and pulling them apart from each other, and kind of have to find their way back to each other.
It is quite the juicy scandal, especially for that time period. Like, I got very excited. I was like, ooh, dead bodies and romance? Great. Best combination. So what's it like for you crafting these scandalous situations for such a far away time period?
It's really sad how restricted, especially women were back then. And it just shows how this thing that was never her fault, she has just dealt with the aftershocks from it throughout the last 4 years, having to deal with this thing that this one man did on a whim, and now she has to pay for it, and now she's doing it again. And I have this thing where I like to torture my characters. So I tend to put them in these really horrible situations. I'm really mean to them, so they really have to work it there happily ever after. So that part's fun.
What kind of feelings does it stir up when you're writing these because you write a lot of historical romance, so you're dealing with these situations that women nowadays will be like, absolutely not. So yeah. What kind of feelings does that stir up dealing with these really like misogynistic, oppressive situations?
It makes me see that we've come a long way, but we still have a really long way to go, because women are still dealing with a lot of the same stuff, just not to that degree. So I tend to see a lot of parallels, just like in what would happen back then and what would happen now. And it makes me sad but also determined to make the world a better place for my own kids, type of thing.
How much research do you have to put into the details for this book? Like, what is your process like for that?
There wasn't like a whole ton of research that I had to do for this specific book. The two books that bookended, there was a lot of research. In Some Dukes Have All the Luck, there was a lot of entomological research where I had to, because the heroine is an entomologist and she studies insects. And so I had to do a lot of research in regards to that. And then in the next one, it has to do with, I'll just say divorce in Scotland. That'll give you a tiny little hint onto the next one. So there was a lot of research, but this one, it was more, I had already had the world set. So it was just a matter of focusing on like the emotions and a lot of angst. And yeah, this one didn't take quite so much research, not like the other ones.
It's described as a emotional tale of acceptance and healing. How do you go about crafting the emotional journey for your characters?
My characters tend to kind of take hold of the story and point it in the direction it needs to go. So I'm kind of just along for the ride, just writing down what I need. So I really focus on, when I begin to craft a story, I'm really focused on getting in the character's head, getting their personalities right, how they would react to certain things, and just getting that in my mind to make sure that I do them justice. And then they kind of take the reins from there. I tend to, like, if I have to write a synopsis, like a full synopsis of the whole story before I write the book, typically by the end, that is in the trash because the character will take hold of that and tear it to shreds and say, no, we're going in this direction.
So do all of your characters come to you just kind of as a discovery process, or do you ever get one that's fully formed when it pops into your mind?
Some of them tend to go onto the page kind of like with this really strong personality. Like the next heroine, Serafina, she was very like strong-willed, and the moment that she hit the page, I knew that she was just going to be a really strong character, and so she just kind of formed like right there. Sometimes they're a little bit more work. That tends to be more for the heroes for some reason. I have trouble getting in their heads, so there's a lot of handwriting, drafting, trying to get into their heads. So it just it depends on the character.
Let's talk about our hero a little bit. Well, Lord Marston slash the Duke of Ramsley.
Yes.
Okay, so he starts out as Lord Marston. So my immediate thought was James Marston, since their last name is so close. Do you ever like fan cast or like pick an actor to kind of embody the character that you're writing?
I do tend to cast my books. One of the Starks, the head son from Game of Thrones. So he was kind of like the inspiration, for face and all that type of stuff. Yeah, so each one has their own little casting. And I do tend to put Easter eggs in my books. Like I'm a huge Whovian, so I love Doctor Who. So sometimes I'll throw names in there from characters that I really like connected with or love the name or something like that. Yeah, so I do like to cast people and be like, oh, I really love this character, I'm gonna see what I can do with that.
If this were to be made into a movie, who would you want to play Katrina?
Who would I want to play Katrina? Oh, no. Now I remember. Sebastian Stan is Sebastian, right?
Okay, name. There you go.
Yes, Sebastian Stan is Sebastian.
That tracks.
That's who it was. And Dove Cameron, actually, I cast as Katrina, like how she kind of was during her Disney Channel days type of thing. Yeah.
Now I just want Sebastian Stan in a historical romance.
So good looking. Oh my goodness, I could see the wheels turning in your head.
Just the delight, like James Marsden anyway would be great in historical.
Oh yeah,
but Sebastian Stan, I think the world would fall apart. Like everyone would be so excited. At least all the women. The men would be like, "He's an X-Man. What's going on?"
I would so watch that.
Oh, 100%. 100%. One of my favorite kind of character that's not really a character but kind of a character is Mouse, the dog. Mouse is the most fun in this story. How do you go about approaching creating an animal that plays such a big role in the story?
Katrina came back into the books. She was in the book initially in the very first Allison book, which nobody would really realize that because she's mentioned in the first chapter of the very first book as a catalyst for that heroine's broken engagement. But then when I brought Katrina back as a companion to Lady Tesh in A Duke Worth Fighting For, which was book 3 in the Allison series, I wanted to give like a comedic type thing to it. So I brought in Mouse as her pet because Lady Tesh has Freya, her little white dog, who's very proper and prim. And Mouse was kind of like the opposite of that. Very huge, very clumsy, very goofy, very exuberant. And every scene that he's in, I had so much fun writing. Yeah, so he was an absolute blast to write. He just kind of, like the other characters, because he's a character in and of himself, he took on a life of his own and directed parts of the story in ways that surprised me and delighted me, and I had a lot of fun with.
I feel like Mouse and my boyfriend's dog would have so much fun together. She also loves to jump on people when she sees that.
As long as she
questionable, like
zero in on their crotch.
Not quite zero in, but if you're not paying attention, you'll get it. You'll just get a bonk. We're finally getting her down, like, she's like a year and a half. But she's a German Shepherd Malinois, so she wants paws on shoulders, like look you in the eye.
Oh my gosh,
she's huge.
That would terrify me.
Exactly. We're like, we want to let people come over. You need to simmer down now. But head to junk is still a problem. It's the dogs.
The thing, I've never had a dog that big. I've only ever had medium to very small dogs. Like my dog right now is 7 pounds. She's tiny, tiny little thing. So I actually like tracked this woman down who I saw walking a giant Great Dane. I'm like, I'm writing this type of dog into a book. Can I just pet him and see what it feels like and stuff like that? Because I wanted to, and then I have another fellow writer, Bethany Bennett, who has had Great Danes, and she helped me out a lot, getting into how they act and stuff. So that was a lot of fun research.
It's so much fun when you get a fun little pet story. Mm-hmm. Like Tessa Bailey's new one has a cat named Menace.
Oh, really?
Wears a bow tie. It's great. Another quirky little group is Katrina's friend group, which you have given them a fun little name of the Oddments.
Yeah.
Talk about the process of like why you would give this friend group a name like the Oddments and like how that has shaped them as characters.
Well, these are a group of women who are seen as odd by the other members of society. They're all a little bit different, where they don't quite fit in, and they kind of gathered together and became very close because of that. And kind of as a snub to how society would see them, they kind of gave themselves a little tongue-in-cheek name. And that's why they called themselves the Oddments. They wanted to just claim it, which has got to show you a little bit about how they work and their personalities and all that.
I mean, one of them has a parrot, so
yeah.
I must say it took me a very long time to figure out that Phineas was a parrot. And not just some dude that was randomly here and there. It was like at the end when I was like, wait a minute. Phineas is Scottish parrot. That just made my day. Like as soon as I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. It's like Phineas is just like in and out, in and out. Where is this dude? Nope, it's a Scottish parrot.
That had to be the weirdest thing ever to read.
I was like, where'd the Scottish guy go? And then end of the book finally put two and two together. Granted, I finished this book at 2 minutes till midnight with 2% left on my battery left on my phone.
Oh, you're like scrolling through it.
So this book is in dual perspective. How do you go about deciding if your book should be a dual perspective, it should be a single perspective, like how you decide on the structure for your stories?
So far, every book I've written, except for a very short story that I give out as a freebie to my newsletter subscribers, has been dual perspective. I really like bouncing back and forth between the characters' heads. I like most of the romances that I've read usually do that. And it was just really natural for me to kind of go in that direction and do the dual point of view. I really like to get into the heroes' heads too. I like as a reader, I like to get into the hero's head.
You mentioned your bonus content. You have so much bonus content on your website. How much fun is it to get to continue with certain characters and give fans a little extra?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I really want to write more short stories to add to that. I really do. And I love to be able to kind of stretch my art wings too, because when I started writing, I kind of because I used to be an artist, and I kind of put all that stuff to the side because I could only really focus on one creative thing at a time. And I knew I'd have to put my whole focus on writing. But every now and then I'll, pull out the paints, or I'll pull out the app on my phone and kind of sketch or something. And that's always a lot of fun because it gives me a different perspective too on the characters in the world and stuff like that.
What did you learn from your time as an artist and painting and all that has helped you as a writer?
I think one of the things that I learned was burnout, really. Because if I work on a really big detailed piece, afterwards I would be emotionally drained. So I would wind up working on something really quick and fun and just very loose when I was painting. So I think that kind of helps me a little bit with writing. Working on a really big emotionally charged book is emotionally draining. So getting those tiny little stories in between really helps. There's this short story that I wrote. There's a couple little bonus epilogues that I wrote that were just fun and light. And that definitely helps a lot, clear my mind.
So what have you learned in writing 9 books that you wish you would have known when you first started writing?
I think one of the things that I'm really still bad at is, I'm getting better at it, is patience. Because there's a lot of time in between, when a book is turned in, and you get edits, and then, to when it's finally published and all that. I'm really bad with patience. When I set my mind on something, I really want to get to it right away. So I think that that's something that I wish I had been better at in the beginning, just being patient and sitting back and all that.
No one likes being patient.
No.
The virtue you don't want.
I want it now.
Gamut. What's some of the best writing advice that you've received throughout your career for you, and what you would give to someone? So they're not always the same.
I think the main writing advice I would be happy with giving and taking would be don't hold anything too close. Be willing to kill your darlings, type of thing. I've become to the point where most of the time, if something should be cut or something needs to completely change, most of the time I'll be like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So I'm pretty good at, going through my work and chopping it to bits. That's really important. Don't be willing to work on your craft, be willing to shred things up and put them back together again in a better way. Don't hold everything too precious.
Your website says you write happily ever afters with corsets and cravats. What is it about historical fiction that you love so much?
Okay, when I was 13, I went to a Walden Books, which does not exist anymore because I'm getting old. And I I used to just browse the aisle. And one time I went down the romance aisle, 13 years old, and I found this one book, Under Gypsy Skies by Catherine Kramer. And I read it in one night. I was 13, and this was a steamy book. I had never read anything like that before. And I was immediately hooked. And for some reason, I really gravitated toward historical. I hardly ever read or read contemporary. Um, so I would, go to Goodwill and I would comb through all their used books and I would pick every single historical romance novel that I could in, any time period, anything. For some reason, there was just something really romantic about it, that I really just was drawn to. Like from the moment I picked up a romance novel, that was where my heart was.
And now kids are getting into romance through TikTok and social media. As someone who's been doing this a while and is now seeing like this new generation of readers rise up, what is that like seeing social media become such a huge piece of finding new readers?
I think about that a lot, how it would have been back in, the late 80s, early 90s, when I was really getting into romance novels, how it would have been if I had been able to connect with the authors online. I mean, how amazing would that have been for me as this fledgling, trying to find their passion in this? Because I really wanted to, I started writing when I was 14. I really wanted to become published when I was 14. So I could not imagine how amazing that would be to be able to connect with the authors that you're reading. I think that it's really, really cool for the authors and for the readers to be able to connect with each other. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful to have that, almost like a closeness, it gets very personal, being able to connect with each other, because it really is magic on, a piece of tree written in ink, just tiny little characters, but it's magical because it can come to life in our heads. And now here we are being able to connect with each other. And I think it's amazing. I love it.
Hallucinating wildly while looking at slices of dead trees.
Exactly.
That meme is so funny every single time. It's just like true. Like one of my cafe manager was having like an existential crisis one day. He goes, "Guys, we're trading paper. We're trading dead trees, more dead trees, and bean water on a floating rock. Nothing is important, guys."
It's like looking up at the stars at that point. It makes everything just seem very inconsequential.
It really truly does. And you touched on that this is not the end of this series. What can you tell us about the next book?
The next book I'm really excited about, because from the moment that Miss Seraphina Athwart showed up in A Duke Worth Fighting For, which is book 3 in the Isle of Sin. And, she's the head of the circulating library with her sisters, and she's got her parrot Phineas, who speaks in the Scottish brogue. I knew that I wanted to give her a story that was very like gonna knock your socks off type of thing. And it turns out that she's not Miss Seraphina Athwart. That's actually a fake name. And she used to be married. And now her husband's back. And he wants a divorce and she wants a divorce. So they go to Scotland to get their divorce. And things happen on the road. So it's the first third takes place on the Isle of Sin, and then the rest of the book kind of takes place on the road to Scotland with her kilt-wearing Scottish husband and her Scottish-speaking parrot. And it was a lot of fun to write. It was fun getting out of my comfort zone. I had never done a road trip like that before. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Sounds a little second chancey, and this one was second chancey. Is that your favorite trope, or what are your favorite other tropes to play with?
You know, one of my favorite tropes is actually friends to lovers. I love friends to lovers. That one's a lot of fun. Yeah. But this one's fun too, because you have the history that you can build on.
The last question is the most fun question. Since this is literary hype, what books are you hyped about right now?
Oh my gosh. I read Felicia Grossman's upcoming book. I can't remember the name of it, something Midnight, but oh my gosh, it was so good. And I read J.C. Lee's Emma and the Prince, which is not out yet. It's not going to be out for some time, but J.C. Lee is amazing. You're going to love anything that she writes. Oh, and A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. That has to be one of my it was so good. Oh my gosh. And I actually listened to the audiobook and the narrator was so good. So yeah, I highly recommend that one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk about books. Best thing to talk about, really.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks again to Christina for taking the time out of her day to talk about books. And once we stopped recording, we talked a lot about other nerdy things like K-pop and Doctor Who, and just a good time. It was a good time. I enjoyed myself. I hope you enjoyed yourself too. If you're interested in getting some of Christina's books, the links are down below so you can get a hold of those, and as well as where to find her on social media. And while you're down that side of the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click on that little bell so you get your notifications whenever I post a video. It's something you want to have going on right now because there's so much fun coming up on Literary Hype that you don't want to miss. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time.